Today on the podcast, I'm joined by drummer Andrew Kushnir. Originally from Montreal, Andrew discovered the drums at age 17 and quickly immersed himself in the city's jazz scene. After studying at Berklee and earning his master's from NYU, he became a fixture in New York City's jazz community. Whether leading his own groups or playing alongside artists like Reed Miller and Spike Wilner, Andrew brings deep musicality and drive to every performance, and we are live. So thanks for being here, Andrew. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing this whole thing. I see you turning these out like constantly. It's a great archive of everyone who's on the scene and just like a whole different view of, or yeah, getting to like everyone's perspective on the jazz scene. It's really great.
Yeah, I kind of feel like once you're a pro, you're pro. Whether you're in your early 20s or you're in your late 70s, it's like once you're a pro, you're a pro, so to
Right.
speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally get that.
Yeah. And you and I also have something in common too, because we both went to Berklee for studying and then went to NYU for our masters. So
Oh,
our
wow. Okay.
our educations kind of run parallel.
Yeah.
Um, but what I wanted to ask you first was you started playing the drums when you were a teenager.
Hmm.
Now, at least I grew up where a lot of people start getting into music and picking their primary instrument when they're maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. Did you feel that when you started to play, you had a lot to catch up on because you were a little bit older than the standard age people usually start playing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did other musical things before the drums. Like when I was really, really little, I did piano for a few years. And then I played guitar for maybe 5 years or 6 years and studied that. And then I moved into doing things like production. I actually did like stuff with like samplers and kind of like DJ stuff, and then moved into drums. So I kind of had like, I guess, a musical sense already, but I really knew when I started drums, like I didn't do rock or anything first. Like I just did jazz right away and found a jazz teacher right away. Just like went straight into it and just uh, yeah, tried to give it my all. And then yeah, I mean, they're definitely like there's still things I try to like catch up on. Say like guys who I think start earlier might have more facility just because you're around the instruments so much, and that stuff like that just takes time to just to build up and yeah,
What
I don't know.
prompted the decision though to go get a jazz teacher? You obviously had this interest, so where did and it's pretty insightful to say I'm going to go get a jazz teacher, right away.
Uh, well, I mean, I've been around jazz pretty much my whole life. My dad was a huge jazz fan and also like a part-time musician. I was playing all the time. So I had that in my house constantly. And I was playing with different bands, actually as like I was saying, like as like a DJ and also using like sampling stuff. As I played with a live band where I would like incorporate samples and things like that. And I really got drawn to the drums, interested in that and started when I was doing sampling stuff, I was going back through like my dad's record collection and listening just to all sorts of just jazz records, like Art Blakey and Oscar Peterson and Monk and all stuff. And I really just honed in on drums. I'm like, man, I really want to be able to do that. And also just interact with the musicians very organically. Like when you're doing things electronically, especially like sample based music or DJ based music, so like that, it's very hard to kind of um, interplay organically with people because there's like it's not that easy. I really wanted to get into that, so I decided to study study drums and just like really focus on jazz. I just loved it so much. I just like fell so deeply in love with music, and I just had to do it.
So talk to me about, going to Berklee, what it was like for you. I've spoken to so many musicians and everyone has a unique perspective on Berklee, and it's probably going to be one of the institutions that's always there for people who
Hmm.
want to study.
Hmm.
So that's the, where you get your foot in the door.
Hmm.
You kind of get a sneak peek into what being a professional musician is like. So what was your experience like going there?
I love Berklee. I had a great experience there. I actually started. I did. I don't know if you know like the 5 week program. That was my first kind of like taste of Berklee. I did that for a summer when I first, and I just like loved it. I loved the classes, I loved the teachers, I loved their approach. And then after doing the 5 week program, I applied to do the undergrad and got into the undergrad. And I mean, I think people always say this, and I guess it's true for every person, but I kind of feel like the Berklee I went to is very different than the Berklee today, just by people I talk to, and it's all just the way I see the institution uh, advertising itself and also the kind of stuff that they're doing. But I was there from 2012 to 2015, and I feel especially from like 2012 to 2014, I think I kind of got like the last of the old guard of teachers. Like a lot of guys, when I was graduating, all those teachers were kind of like retiring, and not even like big name guys people always talk about Berklee, but just like harmony teachers, like those guys who actually created the system that's used to analyze harmony that Berklee is like known for. Those guys are still around, still teaching. So I got like a taste of that, and also the ear training guys. And I don't know, I felt like it was great. I love the teachers, I love the ensembles, learned so much about playing, had uh, great private instructors. My first couple semesters, I studied with, I don't know if you know John Hazilla.
Mm-hmm.
So with him for my first two semesters, and that was incredible. He really got me focused on like the ride cymbal and brushes. Then I moved on to Huron Israel for one semester, and then I moved on to Neil Smith, who I stayed with until I graduated and did his classes and his ensembles, and that was a real great taste of like what to expect in New York. I feel like as a teacher, he was always trying to get his students who wanted to get them ready to like come to New York and be on that level. So that was very interesting.
So definitely a positive experience, and the studying continued on because you went to go get a master's degree, and then you become a working musician. So how do you balance being an artist with the hustle of just making a living in today's jazz world? It's obviously very challenging, but how do you balance that
Um,
personally?
well, I don't really. It's not like sound counterintuitive, and also maybe I don't hope this doesn't sound bad, but I don't really see jazz as a career. Kind of. I don't know. I'm fortunate that I also have like a side gig as well. I also work at Smalls, which makes me be part of jazz constantly. But like, I don't know. I really just try to view it as this art form that I do, and just the love for the music and doing it. And I don't know. I just do it because I love the music. And and especially the type of music that I want to play, the type of jazz I want to play, I'm very aware that there's no money to be made in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, after being in this business for a long time, I think the version of the jazz dream I was sold is obsolete at this point.
Right.
Um,
For sure.
the
It's
craft and the spirit, that holds value unquestionably. It
right.
just takes a different shape than what you thought it was going to be when you started. But the jazz dream that I was told was, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it
I,
never did. I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, I think I don't know if you know uh, Adam Frumkin. He's a tenor player. He also used to work at ornithology, and I think he makes mouthpieces now for saxophone. But he used to have this saying when I talked to him about this stuff. He's like, "Yeah, jazz has always been on hard mode," and I think that's kind of like the way
Always
it
been
is.
on what? I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, always been on hard mode, like
Mm-hmm.
kind of like in a video game. Like you read these interviews with guys, even guys who are around like in the 50s and 60s. Like I remember reading this interview with, I think it was Jimmy Heath, who was talking about how when he was playing in the Dizzy Gillespie big band, he was still selling shoes at Macy's.
Well, I,
And
I love that because we're sold this thing that you can't be serious about jazz unless you do it full time, but you can't be
right,
serious about jazz if you can't afford groceries.
right.
You
So
know,
I mean, I think, and everybody has, uh, you know, different opportunities presented to them, and also have different ways. Like, I don't. I mean, everybody comes from different place. I mean, if you're incredibly fortunate that you come from either a family or someplace that supports you financially to do this, and there definitely are a lot of artists out here who are, whether they want to admit it or not, are being financially supported by someone else and not necessarily their music. I mean, you can either be sour about that and be like, oh man, like that's not fair, or just realize that like people have different just different opportunities, and like that's a great thing too. I mean, at the end of the day, as long as people are contributing to this art form and trying to make it better and trying to be better musicians themselves, and that's all that really matters.
no, no, I think you're totally right. And I love how you're so honest about it because it's almost something that, people don't want to talk about, or maybe they're embarrassed to talk about.
Right.
We're just kind of sold this thing, but I think talking about it just makes everything thing realer.
I think yeah, I think that's kind of like one of the main. There's still kind of the secrecy about finances in jazz. I think that's one of like the last like really guarded things that no one really wants to talk about. No one really wants to talk about how much they're making on a gig or how much, and not that that matters, but like it's hard if you're a student who's coming into this and trying to do this as a profession, and no one is being honest with you about what the, I mean, especially like in New York, how much you're actually going to make trying to just play, for instance, then you're going to be really have a kind of have a rude awakening once you like start doing it. And not to say that there's not money in playing. I mean, there are a lot of people who do make a lot of money doing it, but that's a very small fraction of the whole jazz world. You know, I
Less
mean,
than, yeah, I mean, we're talking about less than 5%, you know.
yeah, like there's only I don't know, there's only like Brad Mehldau makes a ton of cash playing. Maybe there's some other artists of that caliber as well who are like in that
Herbie
threshold.
Hancock.
Yeah, but then there's just like the jazz warriors, like the everyday guys who are just like hustling and doing it. And I don't know. I think that's something that if I were to design a program or if I were to talk anywhere, I think that's an important thing, kind of like a music business thing, just to like be honest about what it is, you know? It's kind of like that whole thing where you go to school and every school tries to sell you on the fact like, oh man, you're gonna go to school and you're gonna get this degree and then you're gonna go teach at some university. But there are, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but there are like a million jazz schools across the US that are producing a million students every year, and there's only five teaching positions. So,
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, and the universities are losing their music programs. I've talked about this already a little bit, but like the music university I've taught out for years is closing their arts department,
right,
just shutting it down. So even those jobs don't exist anymore. So musicians are going to have to think about outside of teaching now.
right. So yeah, yeah, like I mean, I guess to kind of like circle back to it, like to me, I just want to try to play the best music I can play, and if that means I have to do other things to support that, that's what I'm going to do. Also, I don't know if there's. I'll also do gigs. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is why I'm not making as much money as I should. But there also do gigs that don't pay as well as long as the music is cool and the people that I'm playing with are cool. You know,
Yeah.
like that's kind of I just want to do it for the music. 100 like that's the main for me at least. That's the main priority. And then kind of after that, everything else kind of falls
Yeah.
second after that. Because
Well,
if you're not
I also think too that for a lot of musicians, jazz is their entire identity.
right, yeah. I mean, I think there's something to that, but and I think we all have to strive to be whole people and have different interests as well. But I mean, it's hard because it's such a hard thing to do just just as it is, like just to be good at playing jazz and playing instrument takes a lot of hours and a lot of concentration and a lot of hard work. So you kind of just get sucked into that one thing and trying to do it so well. And I guess you kind of get stuck in like the competitiveness of it and trying to be the best. So it's
Yeah,
understandable.
that brings me to something else I wanted to ask you. We're always working on different things to improve, but what's something like one concept that you're currently working on that's always been a part of your practicing as a drummer?
For me, it's always for more than anything else, just focusing on the ride cymbal and the and just the beat and time. If there's one thing that I think I do okay or well is play the ride cymbal, and I've put a lot of time into doing that. And I think for the type of jazz that I play, which is just mainly like straight ahead jazz, that's for the drummer, that's it. I mean, that's your whole thing, you know. So you should really, and then also just kind of transcribing. I think if you do a little bit of technique stuff, a little bit of stuff to work on time and feel, and then you transcribe, that will kind of cover most stuff that you need to know to play this music. Everyone always says it, and it took me a while to really kind of like learn it and appreciate it, but it's all there on the records. There's like millions of like jazz books. I mean, especially going to school, you're always told to like buy like, oh, you should buy this like book or this book or that book to like work these exercises out or do this or do that. Especially drummers. I think drummers, for whatever reason, there's like a million drum books, and people are always like writing new drum books. But really, if like you want to know how to do it, just take a record that you love, find a drummer that you love, and just learn that record. Listen to the whole record and learn. You don't necessarily have to transcribe like a whole like solo or anything, but like take little bits of that and learn that. You can that's a lifetime of work right there, or even just like that will give you all the information that you need, in my
Do you think,
opinion.
yeah, do you think the role of the jazz drummer has changed in today's jazz world?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess it also again depends on the type of music that you're playing, but I think it's always been the same that I mean, I don't think there's any sort of hierarchy on the bandstand either. I think we're all trying to do everything together. I mean, everyone's got to bring their A game to it to make this work. I mean, that being said, I will say that like in a band, if you have a bass player that is weaker than the rest of the band, or you're playing with a bass player who's not that strong, I think that can really cripple a band, even more so than a drummer. Because like I've seen working at Smalls, I've seen countless jam sessions every night, and if you have like a really good bass player who's playing, even if the drummer is not as proficient, they will keep the band and the music going forward. I think that's like the most important role of any band.
Yeah, I think no, that's great. As far as what jazz being a revolutionary art form, do you think it still has the power to be um a revolutionary art form, or is it just something that's just it's always going to be this niche sort of genre?
Um, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, um, I think jazz, especially bebop, and has always been underground. I think it's always just been an underground thing. I mean, even like the '60s when bebop was happening, it wasn't exactly popular. So
Yeah.
I think like jazz has always been just an underground movement. And I guess to your question, like if it can, what I mean, like politically, if it can like
Well, I,
be,
I know I'm a little naive. I think if people just, were exposed to it and understood it more, it would help them explore themselves a little bit and just understand the possibilities of their lives, just because of the possibilities with the music and not forcing, just all these little lessons inside playing the music. I mean, I personally feel it could be if it were just more. I'm not even talking about mainstream like on the radio. If just it was just more people got to see it regularly. It was just around more, whether it be in
well,
restaurants or community events, anywhere, that sort of thing.
I mean, yeah, I feel I guess I mean I do also wish that more people appreciated jazz more than they do. I mean, I have my own kind of like I guess you can call it conspiracy theory around jazz. Like a lot of
Oh, I want to hear this.
well, it's really it might sound very stupid, but I'll definitely
No, no, no. Please,
I'll
please say
share.
it.
So if you're watching like you know mainstream media, TV, movies, whatever, with usually without fail, if someone is to mention jazz, they usually frame it as something that is either not good or cannot be understood, or they like think it's like free jazz, or which I love. But they like try to like frame it in that way and make it seem like it's really like weird and not great, or just sounds terrible, or no one likes it, like et cetera, stuff like that. I think that comes kind of from like a racist bent because it's like a Black American art form, and it's kind of just like trying to take away the power of jazz. Because on the other hand, you know, in media, whether it's like TV shows or whatever, people talk about like classical music or things like that. They always say how like great it is, or you see like people going to like the opera, like upper like wealthy class people going to like see that, and they say like how amazing that is. But that can be just as out as jazz music, but that's Western white music, so people don't really discredit it.
Yeah, there was also the belief that all jazz musicians used to be were on drugs, or
Right.
yeah.
The same thing. I don't know. I think there's just always this like thing in like in 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 media trying to like make jazz seem terrible. I think there is some sort of, in my mind, is some sort of like racist motives behind that.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah.
And then whether people realize it or not when they're saying it, or like doing it because it's kind of like left over from like the 50s and 60s. It's just like that's still, I think that's just something that's yeah, that's my own little jazz conspiracy theory.
Yeah, your musical truth that, something you believe that, might others not agree with, but I think it's very interesting. 100%. So, what keeps you motivated to create in a world that, has, it's not indifferent to it, but it has that view in your opinion?
Um, I think, uh, I mean, for me at least, it's just like when people do see it and people come to see jazz, that people are very grateful to be around live music and see, especially, I think jazz is also something that is you really have to experience live.
Mm-hmm.
As musicians, we love all of these records and there's great recordings, but for someone who's not really into it, I think it's hard to get it from a record versus going to see a jazz performance live from people. And I think that's kind of like just giving to the audience and making people feel good. That's kind of, and just trying to, I don't know, just be the best musician I can. Kind of. That's my own personal goal. Just every day try to be better. So that's what keeps me going.
Um, as far as, what's your approach to listening, like, on and off the bandstand, would you say?
Um, I don't really, I mean, I definitely go through periods where I listen to something like a lot, depending if I'm really into like a certain artist or a certain album, but I definitely don't listen to music as much as I used to, just
Mm-hmm.
because with working at Smalls and Mesro, I'm around music so much. I kind of don't, when I'm at home, I very rarely listen to music. So I kind of try to give myself a rest from being around so much sound and so much music constantly. But on the bandstand, I try to listen to everyone but myself and try to like I once took a lesson. Do you know Rick Rosato,
Bass player.
this bass player? Yeah, I once took a lesson with him, and he was telling me that when he plays, he tries to imagine that he's at the back of the room listening to the band and listening to the whole thing, and how does it sound to someone who's like in the room. And I try to kind of have that mindset as well, like how's this all sound together from if you're not on the bandstand, and how's it all sound as one group. And then also when I'm playing, I try to focus in on multiple people multiple times, but like definitely always a bass player, always trying to see where they are, locking in with them, and then also the soloist as well. I mean, you kind of got to like divide your attention between everything that's happening on the bandstand. But for me personally, the last thing I listen to is what I'm doing, because if you're listening to yourself, you're not catching what's happening on the bandstand around you because it happens so fast. If someone does something that like or anything, it's just like it's within seconds, and if you're not totally in the moment right there, it's just gonna pass you by, and you're not gonna notice it. So I think you just got to be very much in the moment, constantly, as much as you can. I mean, it's hard. Concentration is a really hard thing, especially in today's world, where everyone's concentration is being diminished constantly. It's really hard to like stay focused on one thing for more than 2 seconds.
No, I mean,
So
I totally understand what you're saying. Now, I've come to the realization too, playing music, like, in order for it to happen, it's like I have to like almost like say goodbye to myself before I play
yeah, I mean, it has to be. I think you have to kind of, in a sense, leave your
to be in
ego.
the space. Yeah, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I remember when I was getting back to Berklee. When I was at Berklee, I got a chance to, I think either for one semester or 2 semesters, to be in Ralph Peterson's band. Not he had like a couple like bands. He had like the Jazz Messengers one, but then he also ran a few like different ensembles. And I was in one of his just like regular ensembles. And he used to tell us, or at least he used to tell my group at least, to like leave your ego at the door before getting on the bandstand. And I think that's something that you'd have to do just to make the best music. It's not about you when you're doing it. It's about the music comes first, and then that's kind of it. It's about the music and trying to make the music the best that it is.
Yeah, and it's a lifelong journey. I mean, the stuff you're talking about that sometimes takes people like decades to figure out,
Right.
years. It's but it's about the journey and not oh we've arrived, but
Right.
I mean, nonetheless, this has been such a great conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time today to speak with me.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much for having me. I hope I gave you some stuff you can work with.
Oh, we definitely got some good content. No, thanks so much, man.
No worries.